Hey Bat fans, welcome back to Room 237, and I've got another Batman comic book review for you. This is one that has, I've been asked about a few times, several times actually. It's a story from 2000. It seems to have had a resurgence of popularity in the last couple of years. I think I know why, but I'll get to that. I posted the thumbnail for this. I actually made it last week when I decided to do this. I posted it on my Instagram, which you can also find Room 237 Reviews on Instagram and Facebook. But it is a story from 2000 by the late and very talented Darwyn Cooke, and that is Batman Ego. Of course, this is the bigger deluxe edition, Ego and Other Tales, which they spell tales as in like tail of an animal. I'm guessing maybe because Catwoman is in some of these stories. I don't think it was a typo. But yeah, this was one that I did read some time ago. I never owned it. I actually don't remember where I read it. But I did read it, and I did like it, and I actually recently just got this copy and reread it, and I'm still a very big fan of the story. I think one of the reasons why it's made a resurgence of popularity, and this might be controversial to say, because I know how people hear things and they run with it, it came out recently, I think during a DC fandom interview, that Matt Reeves, director of the upcoming Robert Pattinson The Batman, had said this is one of his favorite Batman stories. And then soon it was all over the internet that this was going to be incorporated into the story of the new movie, or it's going to be inspiration. I think it's just more so Reeves is looking at this as far as how to look at the character. I think that's how maybe Pattinson read this, and this is how he's going to approach the character. Because it is a very introspective story. I can almost guarantee that plot elements from this will not be used in the film. It's not going to be like how Long Halloween was in The Dark Knight, or like Year One was in Batman Begins. I know they're going to use Long Halloween for the Batman, but it's not going to have plot elements from this in the upcoming movie. I can almost guarantee that. I think it's just a look at an approach to the character. But I think maybe that's why it's made a resurgence in popularity, because prior to that, I didn't really hear much of anybody talk about this book, which is a shame because it is a great story. Darwyn Cooke, taken way too soon. Very beloved, very inspirational and influential, revered writer and artist. Swept the Eisner Awards for stories like DC's New Frontier. His, forgive me for not remembering the name of it, but a Richard Packer story. There was one he did that was very well done. I haven't read it, but award-winning, I guess. And of course, in 2016, I believe it was 2016, he lost his battle with cancer, which is very sad. In fact, the day his wife came out on social media to say what's going on, he actually passed away the following morning, which is very sad. But he has a long legacy of work for us to enjoy, and I'm glad that there's this deluxe edition with Ego, which is probably his biggest Batman story. But it's also got a bunch of other short stories and one-shots that he's done. But also, The thing about Ego, and also Darwyn Cooke, he actually had a short stint on the new Batman Adventures, or season 4 of the animated series. I think he worked on 4 episodes. I think he also worked on the Batman Superman Adventures and Superman the Animated Series, which the animation in this story is very evocative of the animated series. It's not linked to the show in any way, except for one reference that does kind of link it to that universe. But it is very evocative of animated series style. I love the look of it. It's got this wonderful sort of 30s, like, architecture, cars, electronics, all look very 30s. It's a very introspective story, as I've said, and I really liken it to the likes of Neil Gaiman's Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader, because that story sort of looks at what Batman is and what Batman represents, but this is more of why is Batman Batman, and it's a great one-shot. As far as continuity goes, there is more evidence to it being out of continuity or non-canon, but it's so loose with it that you could put it in continuity if you wanted to. I mean, there are some things that are contradictory, which I'll get to, but if you are to put it in continuity, it takes place during year 3, because it alludes to this being the first year that Dick Grayson was Robin. So, and actually, there's a nice foreword in here by, what is her name? Amanda Connor, saying how she was given all these pitches to places for comics, and they were saying how her drawing style looks too animated, too cartoony. But then along comes Darwyn Cooke, blows everyone away with Ego and his style in general, which is very animated and cartoony, and she's just like, oh, that bastard. But then they became very good friends. So, get right into it. Batman Ego also has one of the craziest openings to a Batman story. I mean, especially for one that has like this very animated series kind of feel. It also has like a year 1 kind of narrative, like the sort of noir sentence fragment kind of narration. But Batman is up on the sign of leaving Gotham City. He's in pursuit of this one criminal who's in the car. We see through flashback that Joker, he had apprehended Joker and had already turned him in. But now one of his henchmen is on the run. This guy named Buster. And actually Batman has already been shot. He's bleeding, he's losing energy and consciousness. And he finally sees this guy named Buster. And he's after him because this heist that Joker and his men were involved with, some of or all of the money is gone. He believes Buster has it. He's just tying loose ends from the crime. So he follows Buster to this Gotham City bridge, and he sees that Buster, he gets out of the car. He's not trying to make a getaway. He's going to jump off the bridge. And I really like this line because earlier on in the story, he's talking about how he's full of pain, exhaustion, he's feeling faint. But as soon as he realizes that Buster's going to jump, he says, pain gone, exhaustion gone, there's only adrenaline and a target. And he uses his it's basically a grappling hook, but in the shape of a batarang. Wraps it around his ankle, and then as he pulls him up, he goes up, and he's pretty much interrogating this guy, and basically the back and forth adds up to Buster trying to run away from the Joker. And Batman tries telling him, I got the Joker, you're fine. He's apprehended, and the guy tells him, that doesn't mean anything. Joker's just gonna escape, like he always does. And, of course, this guy, Chucky Soul, who was a thug in Mask of the Phantasm, my favorite Batman film, that's really the only straight connection to the animated series. He says, because Chucky Soul ratted you out, Batman, that means Joker knows that I ratted him out. And so Joker's gonna escape, he's gonna come after me, he's gonna come after my family, and that's when he drops the bomb and says, that's why I killed my family, his wife and kid or kids. And so Batman's like, my God. And so the guy just killed his whole family and was going to kill himself. Because he says, I killed them quickly with mercy. Joker's a madman. Who knows what he would have done to him. Batman tries to stop him. And just, the guy basically says, actually the line is, I'll see you in hell, you masked lunatic. And we just see a panel of Batman with blood on his face, and bang, the guy shot himself in front of Batman. And then the chapter ends with him saying, what have I done? That's a crazy start to a Batman story. Chasing this guy, he's trying to tell him that he's safe, he's Joker's put away. He fears for his life so bad and his family's that he kills them and then himself. And so then he's driving back to the Batcave, and we get shots of his speedometer. And he has flashbacks of people talking to him as Bruce Wayne about Batman having some real problems. Like we see, I think that's Hugo Strange. It says Batman must have both schizophrenia and split personality. And then there's Gordon the mayor saying Batman must be a total head case. And after each one of these flashbacks, we see the speedometer is just going higher and higher. And then he sees a glimpse of Buster in the flames of hell saying, see you in hell, you masked lunatic. And he's able to hit the brakes just as he's at the cliff of the Batcave to stop. And he's about to go into a confession. Mother, father, I have something to tell you. And he's got this giant photo of them down in the Batcave. He's going to confess that basically this guy killed himself because either I messed up or I'm not doing too good of a job keeping Joker locked away. And that really is a catalyst for the rest of the story. Every crazy thing that happens in this book does eventually circle around to the beginning of this. And Batman starts to say, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. This is too much for me. And then someone yells, you fool. And then we get the title page. Batman Ego, or the full title, Ego, a psychotic slide into the heart of darkness. And he basically sees this, the person that yelled, you fool, you think you know pain, you coward? I will show you pain. And it's not a person per se that's saying this to him. It's this disembodied vision of this scary, demonic Batman. And I think it's supposed to represent, because of what he calls himself in this, supposed to represent how the criminals see Batman. Like, Bruce Wayne is now seeing them from their point of view. And I like how this first line here is, "Have I got your attention, Bruce?" But it's almost like, just because of the craziness that happened, and then that the title comes up, it's almost like Cooke is saying, "Reader, do I have your attention now? Good, strap yourself in." Bruce asks who he is, and he's like, "Who am I?" He's like, "Don't be stupid. You know who I am and why I'm here." And yes, it is because Bruce Wayne was just lamenting that he should retire or quit. And of course, this dark Batman taunts him, calling him old man, even though he's still young. It's like, still looking at pictures of your parents. It says, "It's tough for you at Christmas, isn't you? They left you when you were so young." And then there's a photograph of Bruce with his parents on the last Christmas that they were alive. And the Batman says, "But they're dead, just like Buster Snibbs' family." And Bruce is yelling for him to stop. He's like, "Dead, dead, dead." And first, he starts to think it might be some sort of trick by, like, Scarecrow. Maybe there's some, like, fear toxin he's been exposed to. He turns off the computer, but then Batman shows up as this vision. And it doesn't ever say if it's a hallucination or a real, like, mental breakdown or a spirit, like an actual spirit. And it doesn't need to. I'm glad it doesn't give that kind of explanation. But once he shows up, I like this line where Bruce says, "My God," and Batman says, "Perhaps, but lately you've been lacking faith." And basically, from here on out, Batman tells him, like, I'm not just a costume to you. Or, you think I'm just a costume. You think I'm a cape and a cowl, then you go out in the night and you do what you do. I'm much more than that. Is that I am the very essence of who you are. Or as he says, "I'm the very heart of you. During our youth, I lay dormant within you, faceless. Nameless, I existed, but I could hear, I could feel." And then we get a flashback to that very Christmas, where where Bruce gets a Zorro action figure, and he's very excited to give Thomas this tie that he picked out, but it's got like a palm tree on it. It is very stupid. He's like, "Oh, thanks, son." And then, of course, Martha gets the pearl necklace, so we know, like, Zorro pearl necklace, we know is pretty much the last Christmas. So then they have their Christmas dinner. And then Thomas gets called away on a house call. And I'm going to assume that this this butler is not Alfred, because he's super old. He doesn't have a mustache. I'm going to say it's either Alfred's dad or some other predecessor. Because Alfred actually, during the real-time events of this book, he doesn't show up. So and I think where Alfred is so fundamentally important and just just as big to the mythos as Batman as his parents, it does kind of make sense that he never shows up. So I do suspect that that's not really Alfred. Of course, Alfred would come in later. We just don't see him. So Thomas gets called away on, he has an appointment to go to. Bruce seems upset. Martha convinces him to take Thomas to take Bruce. He brings his new Zorro action figure. So they go, and then Bruce asks him, like, Mom, why did Mom cry when she got her necklace? But she seemed happy. And Thomas tries to explain, like, well, sometimes we're so happy we cry, and we're so sad or scared that we laugh. He's like, do you understand that? And he's like, no, not really. So then we see Thomas go inside the patient's house. And we see the passing of time by Bruce playing with his Zorro, pretending he's a race car driver, and then him kind of laying on the seat, then him looking out the window. He eventually gets out and goes inside the house, and the patient is having a violent attack. Thomas is holding him down, and the guy dies. And Bruce walks in at this very moment, and that's his first experience with death. On the way home, Bruce is asking him if the guy died, and he says, yes, it was his time. He asks if you and Mom are going to die. He's very honest. He says yes, but not until it's our time. He asks if he promises. He says yes. And I was debating on saying that, when I first read this, I thought, are they going to go a route where it all lies on this promise? But no, it doesn't. Like, he became Batman because the promise was broken. It doesn't do that, and I'm glad. But then it shows Bruce lying in bed in the dark, with the scary trees, dead winter trees, in the shadows of the night. And the narration by Batman says, that's where I was. I was there with you in the dark. And, I could feel you. You could feel me. This is the night Batman was born. Saying not necessarily when your parents died, but the first time you experienced death and fear. And then, it was a short time later that everything changed. And I really came out. I really came out in you. And it shows this very stylistic Death of the Waynes, which of course the pearls are in there. Pearls are always in there. And then it says, I followed you forever. I followed you with your training, your travels, your thirst for knowledge and adventure. I was silent, but I was there. And then it goes on to say how I was always part of you, I was always there. And how you can never escape me. You call me Batman, but my name is Fear. And this is when it gets really interesting. So, he's not just the embodiment of rage and wrath and vengeance. He's the embodiment of fear as well. And he does go on to say, for a while, everything was perfect. And we sort of get images of the first times he was going out as Batman, instilling fear into the hearts of criminals. We put our fear into them. We stopped them. And it was perfect. But of course, then you got vain. You got vain, you got the need for celebrity and to be noticed. And we see Gordon and the Signal, and Bruce replies, those are all, what we're doing calls for allies. And Gordon the Bat Signal really helps our cause. And he says, amusing, you thought I was talking about Gordon. And then he says, pretty much, I'm not talking about Gordon. I'm talking about the boy. So this is shortly after Dick Grayson became Robin. So that's why I think if you are going to put this in continuity, it would be somewhere within year 3. Bruce tries to defend him, saying he'll be able to take care of himself. And then at this point, like, it becomes such an introspective back and forth that Bruce is actually interrupting this entity. You know, like he said, do you honestly believe? And then Bruce is like, I will not discuss this. And then I also really like this part where Batman says, you know, it wasn't just criminals when you came along. Like, you brought something else out in Gotham. Pretty much saying, like, yeah, there was organized crime, there was thugs and criminals. But when you came along, so did the kind of criminal that can actually rival your threat. You know, the kind of criminal rose with the kind of crime fighter that we became. Power mad geniuses, and we see Hugo Strange, sadistic madmen, we see Scarecrow, flamboyant opportunists, we see Catwoman, obsessive murderous psychotics, we see Penguin. So, you know, they each brought a new challenge to you, but there is, and then this is when the story kind of comes full circle. It says, but there is one threat that encompasses all of them, that is responsible for more carnage, death, mayhem, loss, and tragedy than any of them put together. And it's one that we created, and that's obviously Joker. And, you know, every time we put him away, he escapes, and he just continues doing it on a greater scale. We have to satisfy justice. We must kill the Joker. And so then, you know, Bruce tries to tell him, we're not killers. We're not going to have blood on our hands. And then it gets really trippy. It's like, you want to talk to me about blood and death? I'll show you blood and death. And rains skulls all over him. And each skull represents someone that Joker has killed on Batman's watch. But we also get, you know, the sign of Monarch playing cards and Axis chemicals, which is one of the contradictions, because we now see how, well, we created him, so now we must kill him. And we see the Red Hood falling in chemicals origin, whereas it shows the building of Monarch playing cards, it does make me think of The Man Behind the Red Hood from 1951. But it also says Axis Chemicals, which is really only in a couple episodes of the animated series and Batman 89, not Ace Chemicals. But with the aesthetic of everything else, I am going with more of like the Red Hood 1951 origin. Saying, you know, he fell in chemicals, we turned towards the rest of his gang, pretty much thinking he was a dead man, but then, you know, something far worse crawled out of the chemicals. And every time we catch him, surrender him to be incarcerated so that he only to escape, he kills more and more and more. We get this great, very animated series inspired artwork. Again, I love the artwork. And it's amazing how very bright and cartoony the artwork can be, while also being very dark. I mean, another reason why it's very evocative of the animated series, because the animated series, you think Saturday morning cartoon, yet it's very dark, thought-provoking, mature, and this is as well. And so then he finally says, you know, one day we will have to kill the Joker, whether you like it or not. And he said, you know, basically, and actually he kind of breaks it down like, it is all because of your code of honor, your moral code, or is it because Batman needs one great arch nemesis to feel complete, just like you need some sidekick or ally because you're afraid of being alone? Or is it because, your father was a healer? So is that part of your moral code? Your father was a healer, not a killer. He was a doctor. So is that part of it as well? And I really like that notion as well. And Batman kind of laughs at him. He even calls him an underdone potato, which is a reference to A Christmas Carol. And he says, this whole thing is madness. This is all just crazy. And he's like, you swore to your parents, you swore to me that you would dedicate your life to this crusade. And now you're turning your back on me? What, because of your life? And then we see that, we see, like, socialites, like a guy at a country club, a beautiful woman at a charity, and just all the different kinds of people that Bruce Wayne is involved with. And then Batman tells him, oh, you're breaking my heart. He's like, I'll show you madness. And pretty much he shows him fires of hell. It's like, I promise you'll wake up screaming every night of your life until we finally kill Joker. And then everything kind of goes quiet. But that's when Bruce finally says, you are right. Eventually, it will come down to us killing the Joker. I've had to make choices. And tonight, with that guy, Buster, I've seen the damage that I can done. The damage that I've done. I let Joker get apprehended again. This man feared for his life and his family's life, so he ended it all. And that is hard for me to live with. And so then he asked Batman, how do I carry on? And so then Batman suggests, let's talk about Harvey. Not only was he your best friend, not only did he have dazzling looks, and was he a white knight district attorney, and his commitment to justice, but then one day the acid came and it unleashed the twisted part of his psyche, or a part of Harvey's psyche that's more twisted than his own face. That's the line in the book. And he's a wildly unpredictable opponent because he's so reliant on a 50-50 chance. And then Bruce defends him by saying his conditions is that he's mentally ill. Then Batman talks about ancient cultures with great warriors, or modern military with soldiers. And then even Zorro, these are all people that have committed murder in the name of something good. Bruce says, but I am not a killer. And then this is when Batman makes the reference to, is it because your father was a healer? Is that why you won't be a killer? And so then Batman pretty much says, we both share the same body, but we need to be separate entities. Like, you live your life as Bruce Wayne by day. By night, I'll take over. I'll do what needs to be done, and then you can just live like nothing happened. You don't even have to worry about it. And Batman, Bruce says, see it? It's so introspective, I actually have to split up who's saying what between Bruce Wayne and Batman. It says, you're talking about self-induced psychosis, like we actually split our personalities? No way. Batman says it's the only way that we can both act freely and fulfill our own destinies. And Bruce Wayne says, well, I have a solution. The answer is no. he says, it was my force that made you what this is, but I've always tempered your wrath. That's what kept you in check from killing. Is what kept you from being a monster like them. So that's what he says. Batman pretty much is able to summon this gun, this pistol, and says, then your only choice is to kill me. Or kill both of us, essentially. And he tosses it to him. And the pistol is wrapped up in the pearls. And he even says, like, and I think you know which gun that is. Implying that it's Joe Chill's gun, or maybe in this universe, in this world, he caught the killer and has the gun. Bruce points it at Batman, and he says, I can't, it would be committing suicide. And then in the most, like, human expression I've seen Batman do, like, the most broken of his stoic exterior, he just yells, oh, for God's sake, is this my life? Like, is this what all this trying to do good has come to? And then that's when Bruce proposes, there's a line that I and we must never cross. We have to use the Batman as a symbol of hope. The only way we can do that is no killing. And we get a panel of Batman beating up a thug with a woman that's on the ground, seemingly who is being attacked. And then we see her smiling as he helps her up. So, we use it as a symbol of hope to defeat the guilty and help the innocent. Not kill the guilty, scare the innocent. A symbol of hope. And it says, if we can channel all that anger and fear into doing that, then I'll continue being Batman as long as you agree to the no-kill clause. And then Batman just says, agreed. And he vanishes into like a Spawn-looking artwork of light and bats, which fades into a small photograph, which Bruce catches. And then it says that Joker has taken a bunch of hostages and threatening to kill everyone. It's his attempt to escape. And then we see Bullock and Gordon, who look just like their animated series counterparts, maybe a little younger. Bullock says he ain't gonna show up. He's like, we have to act now. And then this other officer's on the radio, and he says, Commissioner, it's him. Gordon says, I was worried something happened to you tonight. Batman says, something did, but I came back in one piece. Gordon is kind of hurried, like, yeah, I'm not sure I follow. He's like, and he just said, yeah, never mind. I'm on my way. And you see that the photo is the one from that Christmas that he has sort of pinned to the radio in the Batmobile. So every time he gets in it, both Bruce and Batman can see why they're going to be the symbol of hope. And that's how it ends. Also, that classic rounded car, Batmobile, with like the face on the front. And that's Batman Ego. Again, just a great, solid story. It's straightforward, but it's very thought-provoking and interesting. I get like whatever happened to the Cape Crusader. It's Batman's funeral, but we get a lot of different layers to it. Like this, it all takes place in the Batcave, and it's all because this guy feared for his and his family's life because of the Joker, because Joker's still alive. He kills his family and takes his own life. Then Bruce has to deal with that weight, pretty much that blood on his hands. So then his psyche sort of splits, and he has this sort of self-interrogation as to what is Batman, why should I stay Batman, and what is the best way to be Batman. And I think that's a very interesting story. There's not too many like it, if any at all. I think as far as those introspective, not really deconstructions, but just a very thought-provoking look at not just what makes Batman, but what keeps Batman going and the reasons why. This one certainly does it the best. And, you know, the fact that the animation is very reminiscent of the animated series certainly helps out a lot. And even though it looks like the animated series, it is still very, very dark. It is still a very dark book. But, yeah, I definitely enjoyed this quite a bit. If you stuck through this whole video and I just spoiled the whole thing, I do recommend it. I do recommend getting this version because then you get a lot of extra stories as well. Darwyn Cooke, definitely taken way too soon. Definitely a one-of-a-kind writer. Just like, I also love that original cover, like how Batman is, you know, there's also the blimp with the spotlights. But it's like he's part of and trapped in that building, like he's trapped within Gotham. Like, Bruce Wayne, it's sort of like Bruce Wayne is trapped within Batman, but eventually it's like he can keep Batman trapped inside of him and control him. Like, it's gotten to the point, like, where Bruce Wayne and Batman is at their darkest moments, and they look at their options. How can they pretty much rationalize how they're going to keep going and why they should keep going and not just do what at face value should be done? And it does it in a very great, fast-moving way. I mean, it doesn't seem like a hokey, supernatural story that it gets too goofy. It definitely takes itself seriously, and I really enjoyed this book. Batman Ego, it's a great way for, I mean, Pattinson and Reeves to look at the character and approach the character. But again, I don't think we're going to see Bruce Wayne arguing with Batman in the new movie, regardless of what people want to say. But I really like this story. One last time, rest in peace, Darwyn Cooke. Great, awesome story. Thank you for watching.